With Cardano's recent trading patterns, retail investors are starting to get frustrated with ADA. In this video, we're going to dive down into the technical analysis of ADA to break down exactly what is going on and what we expect to happen next with Cardano. As we get into this video, if you do find it useful and informative, hit that like button. I really do appreciate that. If you happen to be new to the channel, why not go ahead and subscribe, tap that bell, select all notifications, and in doing so, you will be kept up to date with absolutely everything that we do here at Cheeky Crypto. With this said, done out of the way, let's dive right down into this weekly chart and talk about what's going on here with Cardano. So we're going to start things off just by talking about these 5 impulse waves to the upside. For anyone who's familiar with the channel, we've been following this for a while now. It's pretty basic to kind of get the concept. Basically, back in March 2020 was the start of the main kind of bull run, not for Bitcoin, but for many altcoins. And basically what you saw here was a good surge to the upside with the wave 1 kind of peaking up in July. Wave 2, relatively flat, got as low to its low point in September of 2020. Not a coincidence that we also had a correction in September 2021. Okay, then we got a good surge to the upside in the new year, right? Really kind of actually more November time. Finding resistance on the previous high of wave 1 and then pushed up in the new year, right, to new all-time highs. That actually came in at $2.47. Then we went into a fourth wave correction, taking us down to a triple tap on the bottom here, and that came in at $1 pretty much, okay, flat down there. Now, obviously, I think it was May that actually was the lowest point, but we'll get into that on the daily in a moment. But basically, if we take into consideration that fourth wave correction, so the high of 3 and the low of 4, that actually shows us moving up to a 4.236 extension on the Fibonacci in fifth wave, up to $7.22. Okay, but again, this performance is based on just speculation. No smart contracts were around then. There was basically hype and all that kind of stuff. No transactional volume. So the fifth wave could be much bigger than many people actually anticipate, not just because the current performance of speculation is indicating $7.22, but also we're going to have dApps being built on the ecosystem, new projects launching, projects migrating from Ethereum and many others, blockchains, all over to the Cardano ecosystem, and with that will come transactional volume. With transactional volume, you're going to see a lot more ADA actually be utilized for those transactions, and as a result, you're going to start seeing a real big push to the upside. So we've put the fifth wave up there at $10, but that might be even, pretty low in terms of price expectations once that transactional volume really kicks in. Okay, so to put that into context though, because I know people like market capitalization, although it doesn't actually mean anything more than a simple calculation of the last sold price multiplied by the circulating supply. So it doesn't actually represent value, it just represents price. But because people like to understand how to rank things numerically, think of a $10 ADA as a $320 billion market cap, okay? So smaller than Ethereum. And again, I think it's quite easy to see. And obviously, we have to bear in mind that market capitalization is not the amount of money that's in a project, the amount of money that's been spent on the actual coins or tokens of that project. It is nothing more than the last sold price, which fluctuates every second of every day, multiplied by the circulating supply. And when you actually think about that simplistic equation, you realize that you cannot use it to actually measure a cryptocurrency, or definitely not rank them in any way. This is not like the stock market. It's not like a valuation of a business or anything like that. This is a notion or a kind of hypothetical valuation based on some really poor metrics. Okay, so it's important that we understand what market cap is, what market cap is not. It is not a barrier to price discovery. There's 2 things that you have to consider, right? And we talk about $10, it's pretty easy to achieve, considering we've already got a huge squeeze on that supply. We've got to think about staking, delegating, and basically having all of that ADA out of circulating supply, okay? So the amount of ADA actually on exchanges available to purchase is actually significantly lower than what the circulating supply is, right? So there's already a squeeze on the supply. All we really need is some demand, and you're going to get the demand once we start seeing a lot more projects actually being built on the ecosystem, launching on the ecosystem, migrating maybe from Ethereum over to the Cardano ecosystem. And that transactional volume means more people are going to be holding ADA just to be able to use those dApps. So those transactions are absolutely key, specifically when we start talking about millions of people. We've got huge partnerships now with Cardano. We have obviously Ethiopia, 5 million students and teachers. That's going to be a lot of transactional volume in itself, right? But then, of course, everything else that's going on with Boost Mobile, hands, just a handful of others as well, could see significant transactional volume coming in, pushing it way past that $10 range. Maybe it goes up to $20. Who knows, right? Market cap isn't going to be a barrier to that. The only thing that really is going to be the squeeze on the supply and the demand for ADA at the time. So we obviously know long term ADA is going to be an absolute beast of a project, right? And it's important that we have that long term vision, specifically as we drill down into these different timelines. So we jump into the daily, we jump into the hourly. It's important that we understand the longer term play, as well as, of course, being able to take advantage of those smaller time plays as well, right? We're in a bull run, so we want to be taking profits during this fifth wave. And of course, we want to be buying back in the bear market in a very significant way and maximizing our exposure to ADA. At least that's our objective on this channel. Okay, so since March through to, I think it was, May 2021, Cardano has risen 1,400% in gains. And to put this into context, and because we're talking smart contracts, let's compare it to Ethereum for the same time period. That particular time period for Ethereum is 5,100. So when we talk about safer bets in the kind of the space, I don't like the terminology because A, it's not gambling, it's investing. And if you're doing your research, you're understanding the potential of projects way in advance. But Ethereum's only had 5,100% in gains. And I say only, that's a very significant, boost in profits, right? But it's not as significant as Cardano. So we cannot ignore that. Okay, so talking about, the 427 days for Cardano at 14,000% versus the 427 days for Ethereum with 5,100%. $1,000 in Ethereum would have been a poor performer if you had $1,000 in ADA instead. Okay, so ADA outperformed Ethereum massively by the power of 3 almost, in fact. So pretty good stuff, right? So we obviously have a good understanding of where things have been. We have a good understanding of the recent pullback and, of course, the recent new all-time highs. And coming down to this area of technical support, which we're going to get into in a moment. And, of course, looking at some pretty good targets going further forward. So let's jump down into our daily. On the daily chart, this is where we start to see some interesting things that are occurring here for Cardano. Okay, so basically we have the high of 3, the low of 4, and as I said previously, we had like a triple tap down here. Okay, actually it was June was the lowest point for Cardano, hitting that dollar level. And then again coming back down low in end of July. So basically there was a triple tap down the bottom before we launched up to the top, setting a new all-time high, finding upper resistance at $2.97 and just wicking up to the $3.10 area. Okay, so that was the all-time high just here, which was occurring on the 2nd of September. Bitcoin pulled us down. Okay, even though we had smart contracts launching, all of that kind of stuff, the entire crypto space was affected by the month of September. So you cannot blame smart contracts and news breaking for Cardano as the reason for a downtrend. And people are saying, oh, Cardano does nothing but goes down, the news has been bad, or it has some really good news and the price just falls down, right? Well, that's actually not just Cardano, that's basically the sentiment in the space. What usually happens, specifically around September, because we do note that we had a bad September in 2020 as well. Basically, people expect September to be the month of pullbacks, and therefore they make it a month of pullbacks by selling at the beginning of the month and just watching it fall down, buying it back towards the end of the month. And you saw exactly what happened with Bitcoin as we continued that surge to the upside. Once we actually got past, September, October 1st, like a rocket, we went up to the upside, right? So ultimately, that's what you see. It's a self-fulfilling kind of prophecy, right? So being aware of, I need to stop doing that. But being aware of it is something that we obviously have to make sure that we play on that the best that we can, right? So we had the month of pullbacks. We found ourselves accumulating during this pullback into this 786, 702, 618 area of the chart. This is the key technical area for Cardano, right? So getting and staying above the 786, this is $2.15. This is a key area for us to hold. If we can hold this and the sideways trading that we're seeing at the moment, then we could potentially look to rise right back up and talk about new all-time highs. Dropping back down and going into some of these other support areas, such as $1.90 or $2.03. Those are going to be interesting zones to be watching out for and buying up that opportunity as we are looking to move up steadily to the upside once we start launching apps on the platform. So overall, everything's looking very, very good on this daily chart. The other thing, obviously, that we've spoken about previously is a cup and handle. And we can take this cup and handle, and we can see where that goes to the upside, right? So let me just actually zoom out for a second. bring this down a little bit so we can see the cup and handle a little bit clearer.
And guys, this video has been sponsored by 𝗕𝗘𝗪𝗏𝗀𝗀, and specifically the Cardano ADA pool. If you are looking to support the channel and our effort here to communicate out all the recent kind of news, articles, price changes and price action of your favorite altcoins, then there's no better way than delegating your ADA into our stake pool. By doing so, you'll not only support the channel, but you will also earn a juicy return and a nice passive income on your ADA holdings. It's really simple to do, guys. Just load up your 𝗕𝗓𝗪 or Deadliest wallet, drop your ADA into the wallet, and then find the 𝗕𝗘𝗪𝗏𝗀𝗀 pool via the ticker 𝗕𝗘. In doing so, you'll earn a nice juicy return and support the channel. There is no better time to do so, so why not delegate to 𝗕𝗘𝗪𝗏𝗀𝗀 today?
So what we've got is we've got a $4.45 target on the cup and handle. So we have a cup, we have the handle, and then we have our target where we launch up to, okay? So we're basically just finishing off that handle now, and we're looking to push it up to that $4.45. But obviously with a cup and handle, these patterns are only 60 to 70% accurate, which means that there's no guarantee that this is actually going to play out. It's a high probability of it, but there's no guarantee of it. We can deviate away from this pattern very, very quickly. In essence, you could argue that actually we deviated away from it here by extending the top right-hand side of our cup. This is not a neat example. I don't like this personally, but I do want to see us kind of see how we kind of progress. Do we go on this direction or do we not go on this direction? It's not a neat cup and handle by any stretch of the imagination, so we have to be aware of that. But nonetheless, if we can kind of continue that growth and stay above our 786, our $2.15 area, then a 4.45 target seems very reasonable, just short of our 2.618 area of the chart of $4.85. I do anticipate this being October, but timing is the hardest thing to gauge, and therefore we should be expecting this to kind of maybe play out by November. But one thing is for certain, we are looking at moving up. As I said earlier, we do have that high of wave 3, the low of wave 4, indicating $7.22 or $7.23 according to this fib, but I think it's a little bit misplaced. So $7.22 is the current performance and where it's indicating the end of the bull run is likely to end for Cardano. So when we take a look at Cardano at $2.26, to me that seems expensive, but then I was buying it when it was sub 10 cent. In fact, I think it was less than 8 cent when I was actually buying Cardano. And as a result of that, these prices do look expensive, but also on the face of that, we can also acknowledge that we are looking to push up. So there's dollar cost average opportunities here. Now, fortunately for us, we do run a validator, which means we can delegate to our validator and we can earn more ADA from our original ADA holdings, right? So we can just constantly earn ADA. We don't have to keep buying it. So if you're already holding ADA and you're not delegating it, seriously check it out. There's no risk to your ADA. You can put it in and withdraw it whenever you're ready to do so. There's no lockup periods. There's nothing like that. All fees are taken out of the rewards. They're not taken out of your ADA. And basically, you're able to earn a passive income or earn more ADA on your ADA, right? So we talk about buying the dips. It's one strategy, but making sure you delegate is another fantastic strategy to make sure that you're able to earn even more Cardano's ADA, passively without actually any effect on your holdings yourself, right? As long as you do it in a very safe way, there are obviously risks in terms of wallets and things like that, but ultimately the actual delegation process is very simple. Check out the channel if you're not familiar. Check out our pool. It's called 𝗕𝗘. And we'd love to have you join us for minting some blocks, etc. But even if you don't choose us, it's important that you delegate because A, gets it out of circulating supply, and therefore actually makes it a little bit easier for the price to actually spike up. So it's important that we do that and help also with the decentralization effort of Cardano. So obviously it helps the project, it helps you personally by earning a passive income, and why not? It's almost risk-free, I want to say. So good kind of daily chart here, right? We have a good weekly chart, good prospects of where we're heading, slightly longer term. Good to know all that kind of stuff. Good to see a cup and handle, although very sloppy, here on our daily chart. And ultimately, everything's lining up pretty good. But what about that sentiment, right? So when we jump into the advice.io dashboard, this is what tells us a lot more of the underlying data that is not readily available in the charts, right? So advice.io, link in the description below. Check it out, completely free. Sign up, and you're going to get some good information about your cryptocurrencies that you're not going to get from, I haven't seen it on YouTube anywhere else. So check it out. This is basically using artificial intelligence and machine learning to help give you the underlying value of cryptocurrency. It gets updated every 24 hours, and it gives you insights into things like your fear and greed index. But it's not the Bitcoin fear and greed index that you see all over the place. It's a Cardano fear and greed index in this particular example. We can take a look at the liquidity. Is there liquidity problems for Cardano? Is there a risk-reward issue for Cardano? What's the profitability for Cardano? What about those moving averages, right? So we get into a lot more detail. So let's take a look at this, right? We got Cardano ADA at a B3 rating, so it's pretty neutral. It's not the best, it's not the worst, it's okay, right? And obviously I think it has a lot to improve upon, and we're going to get into what this is. And why I think the price is also trading sideways. It kind of ties together, bear with me. So we have fear and greed index at a rating of D. This basically is telling us there's extreme fear in the market now for Cardano, right? So extreme fear for Cardano. People are more willing to sell Cardano. And this comes down to my intro, where I was basically saying that people are getting frustrated with Cardano. If we can hold a key technical area, we should be good. If not, then do expect the people to get too frustrated, drop their ADA and chase other green candles. This is a pretty fundamentally common thing that happens in the space, and also why a lot of people lose money in crypto, because they're basically constantly chasing the green candles, right? And as a result of that, they end up worse off than they actually originally started. So it's important that we acknowledge that, and obviously don't go ahead chase green candles. Instead, what I'm going to show you on advice.io here is something that is glaringly obvious to me, and I'm hoping it's going to be obvious to you guys as well. Okay, so moving averages have been affected by the recent volatility of September. This is a C2. This is pretty bad, right? So moving averages of 10 days is $2.21, 50 days is $2.47, 100 days is 196, right? So the moving averages need to be improved upon. You can see that in the charts, and again, that's something that we can look forward to. As we come down, though, we do have a Sharpe ratio. This is an A2 rating, so the second best rating that this platform can give. So this artificial intelligence machine learning has basically said the risk-reward ratio is actually in your favor, and the Sharpe ratio is your risk-reward ratio, and the rewards outweigh the risks. Okay, so what do we have? If we just take that metric on its own, and we take a look at this fear and greed index at a rating of D. So the artificial intelligence is saying people are very fearful. They have a tendency to sell ADA than to buy ADA, and therefore it's compounding a bit of an issue and creating some uncertainty, fear, doubt, and basically causing people to be a bit scared of holding ADA, right? And lots of things going on, lots of nonsense you usually hear when it comes to Cardano. But the same artificial intelligence that's picking up on that sentiment is also saying the Sharpe ratio is actually in your favor, saying that actually the rewards outweigh the risks associated with ADA. And when you put those two things side by side, it makes it glaringly obvious that that's the kind of fear that you want to buy. Okay, so buying up the fear that's available at a discounted rate when people want to sell because they're scared that it's going to zero or it doesn't have anything, or they're getting frustrated and they want to chase those green candles, that's an opportunity, specifically when you've got a Sharpe ratio that is in your favor. As we come down a little bit lower, there are some other concerns, and I'll get into that in a moment, but the profitability is an A1, obviously 14,000%. Right, nearly 3 times more gains made with Cardano than with Ethereum. Okay, so obviously understand what's profitable, what's not profitable. Pretty clear that Cardano has performed incredibly well. Ethereum has performed well too, but from a percentage point of view, Cardano was the better your better project to kind of back, right? We have got Ethereum on the channel, but I mainly only have it for gas fees reasons. That's all. I'm not actually heavily invested in Ethereum. It's not something I want to get invested in until they sort some of their problems out. And I can't see that actually happening for quite some time. So I'm heavily invested in Cardano, as you know, along with a few other projects that also do similar-ish kind of things, but Cardano definitely seems to be the front winner at the moment. The strategy that is being implemented from a business point of view for Cardano is, hats off to Charles. Basically, it's just fantastic. So I'm expecting big things from Cardano. But let's get back to the other issue that this artificial intelligence and machine learning is also indicating. That's the AMI-HAD ratio, a C2. So the AMI-HAD ratio is your liquidity, and this is a bit of an issue across many different cryptocurrencies right now, and I'm not sure why. We've been trying to figure it out. We're trying to find out where things are going wrong. But basically, there's liquidity problems for Cardano and a handful of other cryptocurrencies. So we take the AMI-HAD or liquidity-based problems with our fear that's in the space, and that problem gets compounded. Okay, that actually then makes it harder to see pumps happen for cryptocurrencies. It keeps them either stable or kind of trading sideways, or maybe even dropping down a little bit, depending on what's actually available from a liquidity point of view. And as a result, when we actually take a look at the chart, and if we jump down into our hourly, and we actually just expand this up a little bit, since we have, let me just get rid of that. Since we have problems with the liquidity, what have we actually started to see? Well, we started to see some kind of sideways trading between a couple of key areas. We're bouncing off of our 786, our $2.15 zone, and we're pushing up to a bit of a higher area up here of about $2.32. But we're not making huge ground, right? Every time we go up, we slip back down, right? So there seems to be some kind of underlying problem with some cryptocurrencies, whether that is an exchange kind of manipulating the liquidity based on what they think is likely to happen in the space or something like that. It will become clear in time. But again, there's opportunities here. If you can find pockets of liquidity to be able to buy up some Cardano, and maybe some exchanges are only letting you to sell Cardano. If you can't fulfill your orders, maybe there's something going on that we just do not know about just yet. But in time, I do think it will become clearer. So overall, we have to be aware there's extreme fear for Cardano. There's liquidity-based problems making buying and selling difficult for Cardano. And of course, we have to consider long-term prospects as well. So there's volatility on our hourly chart. I do anticipate us pulling down from our current position, considering we're overbought on our stochastic RSI. And so therefore, we look to pull back down. And we're going to be looking to pull back down probably to this area here of about $2.22. $2.22 seems like a pretty safe area. If we do slip down lower, then we probably want to be targeting, probably 218 or all the way down to 215. I don't think we're going to slip down lower than 215 down into our 786. So let's just retarget some of these areas first. Try $2.22 and see if that holds. If it doesn't, $2.18. And if that doesn't, then 215. But I think that's going to be pretty much that, to be honest with you. Once we touch this area here, do expect to move up sharply because this is a good buy area, and many traders will be taking advantage of this, depending on liquidity, of course. So overall, I think it's important that we acknowledge, long-term. Everything's looking very, very good long-term for Cardano. Good prospects in the longer-term vision in terms of the weekly chart, and of course, looking forward into multi-cycles. Cardano valuation, I think, in 2025, put it somewhere in that range of about $32. So looking at this right now at $2.26, even if you want to just hold it for 5 years, it's going to be a very significant return on investment, right? But again, even if we go further and beyond that, the daily is looking pretty good with the cup and handle, targeting $4.45. Although it's a sloppy cup and handle, it's something that is 60 to 70% accurate and could fulfill a $4.45 target getting associated with October. Could be extended into November though. Timing is the hardest thing to gauge. On the hourly, on the other hand, some volatility that we should be aware of. We'll be monitoring that situation, taking advantage of those dips, buying up what we can, and of course selling at these key high areas like right now, looking like a pretty interesting opportunity considering we're overbought. So again, always taking advantage of the way up and on the way down on the case of Cardano right now. I can appreciate people's frustrations with the sideways trading. Other coins are moving, and what the kind of manipulation that could be happening in the background here is trying to shake people out of ADA so that they can then move it to the upside whilst basically buying up people's fear. So right now I'm holding tight to ADA, just getting it delegated, earning more Cardano ADA with every single epoch, and I'm building my position when good opportunities present themselves. Overall, if we actually take a look at our downward trend and upward trend here, obviously, guys, I'm not a big fan of trend lines, but if we actually draw a trend line on here, we can see that we could pull back down to this trend line and bounce from it. That would be an interesting kind of thing to just watch out for. And again, when we actually take a downward trend from our upward area, again, we can see that there's an interesting downward trend. This is then forming a narrowing wedge. If I actually put this out a little bit, this could be a catalyst for significant price change later. But obviously, trend lines are the easiest thing to invalidate. So we do have to watch out for that. But for now, maybe we'll just pull down, touch our trend line, move on up. Maybe we'll just bounce around in here until we get that motion to the upside that we so desire. Guys, I'm going to leave the video there. If you have found it useful and informative, hit that like button. I really do appreciate that. If you happen to be new to the channel, why not go ahead and subscribe, tap that bell, select all notifications, and in doing so, you will be kept up to date with absolutely everything that we do here at Cheeky Crypto. With this said, done, and out of the way, I hope everyone has a fantastic day, and I'll catch you all in the next one.